Nation of Celestial Space, State of Scott, Embassy of Heaven, Free State of Jones, Republic of Slowjamistan, New Atlantis. What and where are these places? I'm Lexi, and this is Delightfully Different. These places are micronations. People have been buying small parcels of land and declaring them a sovereign nation. And my next guest has done just that. Are they real? Well, that depends on who you ask and where they are.
I'm Zaq Landsberg. I'm an artist, sculptor with a public art specialty, and I'm going with the founder of Zaqistan.
The founder of Zaqistan. Now, Zaqistan is a micronation in Box Elder County in Utah. Can you explain what a micronation is?
Well,
Yeah.
Okay, so I would I would describe Zaqistan as a de facto sovereign nation, right?
Okay, all right.
So generally, a micronation refers to a couple of different semi-related things that are quite different, right? So a micronation is a lot of times like a very small piece of territory, and then usually kind of run by a quirky dude in a costume, right? So this is a little bit like your uncle declaring his backyard a sovereign nation type situation, right? And so that's when we say micronation, that's mostly what we're basically what we're referring to. There's also Christiania in Copenhagen, which is kind of like a old army barracks squat neighborhood that had some standoffs with the cops in the 70s and 80s. And so essentially, you can buy weed on the street, and they kind of have a little bit of a self-governing thing, although, they're not, don't have the total trappings of nation state. I would consider Vatican City a micronation, right? Because I think the Vatican is closer to Sealand or to Kevin Baugh of Molossia than it is Taiwan, right? Which is
some of them are more real than others. Some of them are just for funsies, a person being silly, and some of them actually do want to become a sovereign nation. They are actually wanting to become their own nation.
So, basically, Zaqistan started as kind of a tongue-in-cheek, fun, or tongue-in-cheek, kind of wry sense of humor situation. But I think once you start pulling back the veneer, right, of if the country is in the encyclopedia, right, it has a flag, it's got a shape, it's got some facts, right?
Yeah.
And then we just kind of move on to the next one, right? So, take the People's Republic of Donetsk and, the occupied parts of Ukraine, kind of Syria and Iraq during the ISIS thing. You have, where the state has control and who is determining what happens and how decisions are getting made is a lot more slippery than I think we think of a day-to-day basis. So I think even, out in the desert in Utah or Nevada or the American West, the nearest police station is sometimes like 3 hours drive away. So, I think not to say that Zaqistan is like a completely legitimate, like UN member state ready situation, but I think once you start asking the question of like, okay, is Zaqistan a country? The answer, why not, applies to a bunch of different situations, which is sort of like, has led me down a kind of 18-year rabbit hole. So.
I'm sure. Well, and the people of the authorities of Box Elder County, they don't really hassle you. And I get the feeling they kind of think it's fun and they almost encourage Zaqistan.
Definitely, I'm buddies with a volunteer search and rescue member in Box Elder County. And I think talking with, or he's known as Machine Gun Mike, and some of my, kind of more colorful neighbors, I think he was saying that the deputies out there are just happy it's not a meth lab.
Right. Well, because it really is in the middle of nothing. You're in a place in Utah where people don't normally go even to recreate. It's on the other side of the lake where people go, and then it's on the other side of the salt flats. So you're living in this very bizarre place where there's really nothing. When we were heading out there, we thought several times, even with your instructions, even with Google Maps, and even with the GPS in my vehicle, I thought we were lost several times, and we stopped and we started to turn around, but then we kept going and I'd see another sandbag. And you really are not going to find this unless you're looking for it. When you went, well, first of all, how did you acquire the land?
So in the summer of 2005, I was home in California from college, and I was working a summer job, and somebody described a piece of video art to me where this German couple bought a piece of land off of eBay. And I thought that was a pretty good idea, of like owning a piece of the American West before it's all gone. And so I logged on, I put a bid on a parcel, and then kind of forgot about it. And then I got an email. All right, yeah. Once you pay $610, like this thing is yours. So I got a thing in the mail, and it was kind of a like, all right, yeah, let's have an adventure. Let's toss a dart on the map, and drive out there and see where this is. So it's I had an idea of where it was, and I bought 2 acres, so I could tell people I own a couple of acres.
I understand that when you bought it, though, you got some sort of a message saying this might not actually be the land, and you might not actually own this piece, or something to that effect.
Well, I still don't own like a house or anything. This is the only property I do own, right? And so, I mean, I assume if you buy a house or something, you have like an address, you have like kind of a city record of lot lines or whatever.
Surveyor comes out and tells you where your property line is.
I just got like essentially almost several paragraphs of gibberish of I own the east 2/5 of the west 2/5 of the blah 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 blah, getting it reeled down. And so essentially, like, I got a warranty deed, and then I signed it, sent it to the Box Elder County Recorder's Office, and had to like translate the township range description into GPS coordinates, which was like kind of more complicated than you might think in 2005. And so I think and so basically, like as far as I thought about it, or I assumed that I own it. My friends were like, should you have a lawyer look at this? And I was like, a lawyer is going to cost more than $600.
Right, exactly. No one's going out there to dispute you, I can tell you that.
Right. So and so I got a letter from the county like a year later, because I think basically you can't buy a big parcel and just put lines on it yourself and sell it.
Right.
Because you need driveways, you need liens, you need access. You can't have like your land be like an island in the middle of someone else's land, And this guy basically bought a parcel, put a bunch of lines, sold it on eBay, and then I think disappeared. And so this happened, I think, a couple other places. And so Box Elder County, pretty rural, pretty sparsely populated. Like those guys are not really equipped to like hunt this down. So I got a notice saying that it's going to be illegal for me to sell, build on, or subdivide further my land. Yeah. Okay. But at that point, I had declared Zaqistan a sovereign nation, and I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to disregard this now.
Well, you pay taxes on that land.
I traditionally kick them a little tribute every year to keep relations friendly.
What are the taxes on a $600 piece of land in the middle of nowhere?
I think it's like $30, maybe 40.
All right, that still seems kind of steep for that. It's crazy.
I can't remember.
Do you know how much that land is worth now?
I think, again, it's like qualify this, okay. So I think they say I have, it's 4 parcels of a half acre each. And I think I bought it all for 600, and I think now it's worth 700 or 700 a piece or something. Okay. Which, and I guess, like the way they calculate it is that if more land is sold for higher prices, then the value of the whole neighborhood goes up. Right. However, like that stretch of desert is with the exception of the robots and things, are as, barren and desolate as ever. So
Totally.
I
Do you
don't know
know
how
who the neighbors are? Who owns the neighboring land? Because it can't be public lands. I didn't see any cows out there or any cow poo, which is usually the out here in the West, the sign of this is public lands because people are allowed to let their cows graze out there.
Right, right. I mean, yeah, the vegetation is a little sparse out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's, I mean, there's a whole slice of, and a nerdy slice of the whole Zaqistan project, which is like, what, like, kind of where is this and what is this, right? So it goes back to the land grants from the railroads, right? And so there's big 1 mile by 1 mile squares that are checkerboarded out along the old transcontinental. So I think Zaqistan is close to, like, a square of Atchison Topeka railroad land, and then some private, and then some BLM.
Okay.
But yeah, there's not a whole lot out there. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not totally in the zone, but like the Donner Party got bogged down in the mud flats, and there's, and
it's
historically
in history. I was surprised when I got there about all the history in the town of Terrace that was there. And when we passed the cemetery, that's when I realized we were in a very important part of Utah that is dead now. And I ended up going home and researching the whole entire town and how they moved it when they decided to move where the railroad was. And all that's left are those railroad ties in that cemetery. It's interesting. But it came out in the news here recently that they are looking to purchase land in Box Elder County because they want to put water into the Great Salt Lake because it's drying up and it's starting to put toxic dust across the state. And they wanted to put a pipeline from, I think, Bear Lake. I can't remember exactly. And they want to start buying land. If that came up and you were in the area where they wanted to purchase it, would you consider selling it to the state?
I mean, water sounds nice. That's a major problem. I mean, Terrace Town, like they never hit water
No.
on
Right.
wells. Yeah, they piped it, or I think they trained it all in or piped it in from pretty far away. So yeah.
Some sort of aqueduct. So that's their plan here in the state of Utah. I don't know if it's going to affect your land or not, but it looks like it's not going to start happening for a few years. I found that interesting. Describe the things that you have built on this 2 acres of land out in the middle of nowhere.
So yeah, the first project, I built 3, or some friends and I built 3 robotic sentinels. I figured, to give it a little border security, right? Kind of boxy looking, made out of aluminum. I thought they looked big when I built them in the garage, but they just looked tiny and desolate and lonely out there.
Up against nothingness, yes.
Yeah, that's the oldest thing. So there's a little customs booth, immigration station with a candy cane drop down gate and a welcome to Zaqistan sign. And then kind of nowadays beyond that, there's the decennial monument that we built for the 10-year anniversary. It's a kind of a riff on a Soviet space monument. It's one of the robots kind of lofted with a kind of swooping in a swooping wedge shape, and that's all sheet aluminum, which right now is pretty riddled with bullet holes, and it's got kind of a Bonnie and Clyde death car thing. Although we kind of realized that,
wondering if you guys did that, or the metal was like that, or people just going out there and shooting guns, and that's how that happened.
Oh, people are shooting it. Yeah.
Okay.
We kind of noticed the longer we were around it, we were noticing that like it's not completely sprayed with bullet holes. It's like they're all kind of aiming at one central spot, which is kind of interesting. Like,
yeah.
But I mean, there's some other, seminal art pieces out there, and like people, kind of neighbors or people I know out there, like shoot at the sun tunnels, and not on a like, they're not anti these things, but I think it's like, yeah, when you're in the desert and you have a gun, it's a kind of way, or it's a way people interact with the world. It's like people don't hate stop signs, but it's just something,
right?
Kind of a spatial relation and moving around in this environment. That's just something you do. So
you're also legally allowed to do it out there in this state. So that's why people go out there and shoot, and there's nothing but your robots out there.
Yeah. No, it makes all kinds of sense to do it out there. Absolutely. So yeah, beyond the Beyond that, there's a flagpole.
We
Um,
noticed that the arch, the Victory Arch, is gone. Did the wind take that away?
the wind blew that over pretty quickly. At that when we built it way back when, we weren't able to really anchor that super properly. So now that's kind of like a work table, and it's kind of made into different elements. There's also kind of a little bunker windbreak situation. And then the recent addition is there's a weather station that my friend Joey set up recently.
Oh, we saw it, and we were wondering if that was some sort of state of Utah weather station or what, or if you guys put it there. So it has to do with you all.
Republic of Zaqistan weather station. Yeah. I think there's some bugs in the technical things, but for a couple of months it was spitting out the wind speed and the humidity and
That's really cool. I'm thrilled to know that. Now, when you were going there so you buy it, and how long was it until you visited after you purchased the land or won it?
It was it's like I won the auction, I think in July, and I went out there in like late August, something like that.
So pretty quickly. And had you ever been to Utah before you made this trek?
Yeah. I grew up in Los Angeles, and so I spent,
Okay.
I spent my, formative years like, road tripping around the West and the Southwest.
Okay. So you're used to being out in the middle of nowhere on dirt roads. Do you go camping and stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, I feel like this is other people I think bought this land and were like surprised, but you know what? I kind of like I had a pretty good idea where it is, and so I was kind of like, yeah, I want, I want to, I want to go to essentially with the transcontinental, like that area was literally the last place on the continent to be linked, to the railroad. So.
When you were driving there for the first time, were you like, what the hell did I do? Because I got a little nervous and I had all the directions, and we were both, my friend and I were like, we might be lost. Were you nervous driving there? Like, I'm going to get lost out here, or how am I going to find this piece of land that I just bought? What was your impression?
It's very bizarre to, because basically I had like now it's pretty antiquated GPS.
Yeah.
And we just basically, like, we saw where the kind of dirt road is, and then we just kind of like drove until basically it seemed like that was the closest to the dirt road, and we just started walking until the numbers lined up. So, but yeah, it's very bizarre to go hiking and to deliberately go away from anything, right? So like normally you're hiking to the peak or the vista or the waterfall or the
right.
This one is like literally walking away.
Yes.
Yeah, walking to arbitrary coordinates. Yeah.
I'm Lexi, and this is Delightfully Different. I'm talking with Zaq, the founder of a micronation called Zaqistan. We were able to drive right up to it and park right in front of the Zaqistan sign. Were you always able to do that, or did you guys have to build a road? I know other people have hiked to there, like parked somewhere else and hiked to there. Were they
basically, yeah, we walked a lot of stuff in there, pre 2009. And so even then it was a sort of trying to like get things around. I mean, I like muscled the old family minivan on the mud flats, in here, but that sort of trail that you drove in on, we sort of, I kind of hired a ATV outdoor guy to blaze that trail in 2015. So it was easy to get there. Well, no, that's a lie. It was extremely difficult to get there. But once we realized that the road was going to take us right there, and we came around the corner, we realized we were no longer lost, and we could see the red entry thing, and then the giant robot, and we were like, holy crap. For some reason, it was overwhelming seeing it as we went around the corner thinking we'd been lost this whole time. And it feels really good to come across it when you're out in the middle of nowhere. When you went, and how many times do you think you've been since you purchased it? Probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 individual trips of like doing that dirt road and coming back out, So, some years I've like gone in, come out, and then regrouped, refit, but,
what have you ever, on the amount of times you've gone out there, have you ever seen anybody else out there that wasn't with you?
Yeah.
You have? Okay. Yeah. We drove for an hour, didn't see anybody, and then we came across 20 Jeeps right by the cemetery.
Oh, really?
Yes. And we were surprised. and they thought we were with them, and we're like, we're not with you. They were the only people that we saw the entire time, and there were 20 of them all gathered together doing a Jeep tour.
Yeah. I mean, every so often, or yeah, more than once, I've been out there, and I think there's some geocaches out there, and so I mean, I'm not really into that whole thing, but
Yeah.
those guys are pretty into it, and they really like don't get Zaqistan, and they're like frustrated that they have to drive around this thing to find
Really?
a can with stuff in it or something. Yeah, which is, I don't know, a very kind of interesting, weird way to navigate the world, I think.
Well, we were thrilled to see it. I thought it was so fun. And I know it wasn't necessarily meant to be fun. You were making a statement with your art. But I see that it looks like maybe you're on the process of putting some new stuff up, or it looks like you brought some stuff up out there to make some more monuments and structures. Or do you have more stuff in the works for maybe next year?
Yeah. I think basically it was before you went out, it was in pretty serious disrepair. So I think it was, trying to get things, the robots will last a couple of years until they, start to fall apart or what have you. So I think it was trying to get things back to zero. I personally think we might have hit a limit of what makes sense to physically build out there, or maybe more things out there isn't necessarily what we need. I mean, we're trying to take a bunch of tourism photos and kind of make new brochures and roll out a new kind of campaign. So, but I think now that things are a little restored, it allows us to, kind of do events and sort of riff on the things that are out there,
And you've already done events, and you have a tourism office in Salt Lake City. Tell me a little bit about that office and the passports and the events. And it looks like that some students might be willing to take people out there if you go to the tourism office. Ask.
Yeah. I mean, basically, we did. The space is now defunct, but we had a friend of mine, Adam Bateman, ran a space called Quack, the Central Utah Arts Center, and so he curated us into he had a kind of gallery on Second and Second, and we turned it into a tourism office for a month, and so it was this. And this was in 2015. I guess this is 2016. So we built the monument in 2015. It took local news reporter out there, that little news segment, which, the desert looks great at sunset. And, he got it, and he kind of put this piece of like, here's what Zach says it is. Here's what it actually is. Here's what it's trying to be. Here's kind of how it exists in the world. And it aired during sweeps, and it got picked up by the Daily Mail. And so it went into 40 languages overnight, and then it went through the AP wire. So there was like a good 2.5, 3 weeks where Zaqistan went viral in 2015. And so basically, in the aftermath of that, I spent like a solid month in Utah, and it was the art piece of it was the gesture of us trying to build tourism in Zaqistan, which actually meant having a lot of spreadsheets and trying to be like, if we do a package tour, like, will people buy this? And so the art of it was trying to convince people to do that, but also doing that at the same time, which was, kind of thing, kind of nesting or coming back in on itself. So. Right. And yeah, we sold a bunch of, we had shot glasses and T-shirts and, coffee mugs and souvenir spoons and things. And so, I think that, and then at the end of that year, we had a group come out that ended up being a little less like us renting a bunch of vans and taking people out there, and a little more of a caravan situation. But yeah, we had this like meal set up for 20 people and shot off some fireworks and stuff. But yeah, it was and so we did something a little similar this year. We sort of kind of restored the thing and had some Salt Lake people, and then Kevin Bob Melosia, who's kind of I would say like the godfather of the micronational situation, come out, and a couple other people
I'm bummed I missed it, but it was almost more thrilling going by myself because the getting there was so fun. Feeling like you're lost, I enjoyed that part, and I know if I we would have made a beeline there, and I wouldn't have been scared if I had been with you guys. And when you guys went viral, you had some fun stuff happen. Like you got a lot of attention, and you got a shout out from Conan O'Brien. But then you also had actual people from other countries who were wanting to flee contacting you, thinking it was a real country.
Yeah, this is part of the thing that's like has been difficult to really describe or present in terms of, me as a dude who does art stuff is that people wanted passports, people, would send like very elaborate plans of like how the political divisions of Zaqistan should be and where we should build the power plant and all the, just like and yeah, like I started to get a lot of emails from Pakistanis and a lot of Pakistanis abroad, and it must have, yeah, been in some, I'm trying to figure out where it was, but basically, yeah, they wanted to move their small business there, move their families out there. So they were sending me their resumes and scans of their passports and stuff. And I think, they like kind of speak English, but I think their grasp of, conceptual art and kind of the subtlety that I'm doing in the reality of the situation, like even if I, gave them, a little citizenship form or issued them a passport or whatever, I would have, even if I, I made them sign a thing or acknowledge, I would have no way to ensure that they didn't spend real money, and have their Zaqistan passport and then show up at an airport and then have a like,
right.
Oh, moment. And so, yeah, so it was intense to get this like essentially a fire hose of the internet all at once. And it was also intense because, yeah, these are people who, I don't know if their situations are quite desperate, but their situations are not good. Their
Right.
experience, under their government, under their situation is just not good. And so there's a like darkness there, and there's also a sort of responsibility where I stopped issuing passports.
That's why you stopped issuing them. You do have disclaimers all over your website about it as well, explaining that you have to go through the United States to get there, and
I
live here.
Yeah, I think in terms of like what Zaqistan can do effectively is, or yeah, basically, I think every year, every 2 years, there's a like news cycle where there's a like, oh, micronation, somebody declares a micronation or whatever.
Yeah.
And it keeps happening. So I think there's something compelling about the idea. And I feel like Zaqistan, because of kind of what I do for a living and who I am, the surfaces of it look good. The passports are
It
sharp.
looks real. And I understand someone actually used your passport at the airport for real.
I think so. Yeah. I mean,
someone in the media got one and did it, and they didn't question them.
Yeah. And so I think what Zaqistan is effective at is standing in for this hope space, right? This idea, the physical reality is almost indescribable, the kind of the silence, the isolation and whatnot. And so, the pictures of us like building stuff out there and going out there kind of create this idea. And I think it is a fiction of like, wherever I'm at now, wherever we're feeling about our situations, like what if we could wipe the slate clean and do something better? So I think not just for like, us in the United States or in North America, but, like the fact that, yeah, they're the idea that like, for people further afield in more desperate situations that, oh, there is a place that maybe we could go. Maybe we can't get there right now, but there is a place where there's not, ethnic religious strife, that there's not insane corruption, that there's not, and so Zaqistan as a, I don't know, a placeholder or a totem for that, I think actually kind of is important and is more important than I kind of realized when I, figuratively packed this snowball and just rolled it down the hill. It's got quite big so far.
It's interesting. How much have you spent on Zaqistan so far, and how have you funded it? Besides the $600 whatever dollars that you spent buying it.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know, $20,000-$30,000 maybe over the past 18 years. But I mean, that's just like supplies and metal and whatnot. My art practice for a solid 10 years has been laying like a low level guilt trip on my friends, like for a long period of time. So, I mean,
I feel like we should also mention that you mentioned your career and being a sculptor and an artist. If the people of New York City might recognize some of your art, especially your the Lady Liberty, who's laying down. I can't remember what it's called. I wrote it down.
Yeah, Reclining Liberty.
Reclining Liberty.
25-foot long, Statue of Liberty, kind of in the reclining Buddha pose, and so I kind of white knuckled that out of my studio during the pandemic, and it just hit a chord. And so it's now in Arlington, Virginia, but it's moved 3 times now. So I mean, I think basically, like, in terms of costs and in terms of the project, I'm the founder. I like bought the land, but I think it's important for me to say, and there's too many to recognize individually per se, but like, this thing is bigger than me, and it's bigger than, my kind of friend in Salt Lake, who's kind of like my man on the ground in Utah. All of this, if you added up the hours, if you added up, all the skilled people I've been able to, beg to come out there and help out and build the thing, it's really like, in terms of dollar amount, in terms of whatever, it's a lot. There's a lot more work that's gone into this thing, and there's been a lot more shaping that, I've maybe set in motion, but that has been filled out and sort of figured out. Because Zaqistan as a functioning state entity doesn't really exist, but as a nation, as a like group of passport holders and citizens who, have opinions and gravitate towards the thing, like, the Zaqistan nation is completely real.
Absolutely. I'd love to be a part of it. And I plan on going back again. And I know it probably wasn't your intention, but the way I felt when I went out there, and I wasn't expecting it, I felt like I was a little kid who had just built a fort out of pillows and blankets. And I was able to go into my own little world and let my imagination go crazy. And that's sort of the adult version of that is what I felt when I went out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope other people enjoy it. And I know you're making a statement, and I hope people think about the artwork that you've created in this area and the statements that you're trying to make. I know I'm going to put links to your website, which describes Zaqistan great. I mean, it has everything. It's got your motto, your seal, your flag, your national anthem. Somebody wrote you a national anthem and performed it on there. And if anybody wants to try, do you want people to go out there, or do you want to encourage or discourage people from going out there?
So, like, here's the thing. It's not easy to get to. So no. I don't want to say, like, completely discourage people. I don't really publicly display you can do it. It's fine. It's findable, but I don't display the coordinates because I think you can get in a lot of trouble. And I have as well, like, being semi-equipped. If you pop 2 tires out there, like, that's a bad situation.
It really is. Yeah.
I mean, if you do want to go out there, tell someone you're going, bring a lot of water, print out directions, and just anticipate that, yeah, like, it could be smooth sailing, but like, yeah, you can very well get stuck. And I just don't want to put people in a situation, where they get stuck. But I mean, yeah, I think this is a thing, 18 years on that I started, but I think people who I don't know have been going to it repeatedly, and which is kind of mind blowing to me. And so, yeah, this thing belongs to, Utahns and people, who want to seek out this weird roadside thing, and not just like this little pet project that I have, which is kind of, it's really heartwarming, and it's a little bit overwhelming as well.
Well, I've only got a minute and a half left to talk to you before Zoom kicks me off. So I'm going to make sure that all and links to your artwork in Zaqistan are up when I post this podcast. And I appreciate you taking the time and giving me the directions how to get there, because I never would have found it without them. And your sandbags, they are still there, marking the locations where you need to take a turn. And I really appreciate it.
Nice.
If you plan on visiting Zaqistan, be prepared. Don't go in the winter. You're going to get stuck. And in the middle of the summer, the temperatures can reach well over 100 degrees. I visited in the fall when the weather was cooled off, but the ground was not yet wet and still hard enough to drive on. You're gonna need all-wheel or four-wheel drive. You'll need food and water, and there are no facilities. So be prepared to use the restroom outside and properly clean up after yourself. If you can, caravan with others in case your car breaks down or you pop your tires. And let people know where you're going and when you'll be back so they can search for you if you don't arrive back on time. I was able to send a few texts while I was there, but phone reception was pretty spotty. There are hundreds of micronations in the United States and a whole lot more worldwide. And there are micro-states, some of which are legally recognized, such as Vatican City. A quick Google search, and there are how-tos for starting your own micronation. And there's a micronation convention called MicroCon. They say it's a biennial gathering of micronationalists, and Zaq went in 2023. There may be a micronation near you. Thanks for joining me this week on Delightfully Different. Coming up next week, I talk to a hella ski guide from Alaska. If you or someone you know lives life differently, email me, lexiontheradio@gmail.com. That's LEXI ontheradio@gmail.com, or go to delightfullydifferentpodcast.com. And have a delightful week.